Hi there, welcome back to our section on what onboarding is. In this section, we'll talk about why thoughtful onboarding is such an essential part of building a strong relationship between the agency and the client. Just about every agency working in SEO has some kind of onboarding process in place for new clients, but the lessons in this section will reinforce the importance of that process and set the stage for some recommendations. In our first lesson, we'll go over exactly what client onboarding is intended to do, and we'll dispel some common misconceptions about the purpose behind this crucial process. If your agency tends to rush through your onboarding processes, or if you think of onboarding as simply a way to keep a newly signed client on the hook until you've sent your first report, this lesson will challenge you to reshape your focus in order to better serve your clients. Client onboarding serves 5 primary purposes. First, onboarding establishes a relationship between the agency and the client. The better you both feel about that relationship, the more smoothly you'll be able to collaborate and achieve success. Onboarding is also an opportunity to share the vital information that both sides will need to understand how best to achieve your goals. This is your first chance to prove to the client that you know what you're doing and that you're going to be transparent about your work so that they can be confident they're getting their money's worth. It's where you begin to earn their trust, which can sometimes be a challenge. Because so many clients arrive at an SEO project without much knowledge of the mechanics of SEO, onboarding provides a necessary opportunity to address any questions or concerns the client may have as a result of that confusion. And finally, this is the time to sync up on goals so that the client knows what to reasonably expect, and you know what you'll need to do to get there. Goal setting with clients is a big topic and one that we'll address in greater depth outside of this course, but we're including it on this list to show how it fits into the onboarding process. Here's something that agencies often forget about these primary functions of onboarding. They all work in both directions. Onboarding isn't just about you talking at and downloading a bunch of information onto the client. You should be getting as much out of the onboarding process as you're giving. These first meetings with the client allow you both to demonstrate your soft skills a little, showing that you're both enthusiastic and dependable. If you're not getting that sense from the client, you may need to instill a little more confidence in them or address their concerns a little more carefully so there's no feeling of hostility toward your team. Information sharing is exceptionally important on both sides. The client needs to gain an understanding of SEO and your agency's way of doing things in order to be a better client, and you need to learn all you can about the client in order to serve them well. Both parties also need to walk away from the onboarding process feeling confident about the future. Your agency should feel assured that they won't face obstructions during the course of their work, and the client should feel like they can depend on you to keep their best interest in mind. Clients aren't the only ones with concerns, either. If your team has questions about the way they've set up their web presence or concerns about their ability to get work implemented, this is the best time to ask the client to address those concerns. And goals need to be influenced and understood on both sides of the relationship to create a balance of ambition and plausibility. It's important to think of client onboarding as a reciprocal process, equally beneficial to both parties, because treating it that way sets the stage for an equally beneficial client-agency relationship overall. Obviously, the agency gets a nice financial boost with every new client signed, but ultimately, you want to see your clients retained or signed on from multiple projects so that you can sustain the agency long term. You can't retain a client or earn their repeated business without establishing and reaching their desired outcomes. So if you stop thinking of onboarding as just the first step toward your next paycheck and start treating it like the first step in achieving the client's goals, as Lincoln Murphy says in this tweet, retention will naturally come from your proven dedication to the client. It's also important to differentiate onboarding from your agency's other client-facing activities so that you can establish a clear-cut process to be repeated every time a new client comes on. Onboarding is not the same as client prospecting, which involves your agency positioning and marketing itself in order to attract new clients. Everything that occurs up until a new contract is signed is part of your prospecting process. The content and messaging that you use during the prospecting phase should be different than what you approach the client with during the onboarding phase because the audience has changed. Once you've received a signed contract and/or your first payment, you're no longer speaking to an audience of prospects. Now you have a client. You're done positioning yourself as one of many potential options. They've chosen you, and the onboarding process has begun. From the moment a prospect becomes an actual paying client and for the duration of the onboarding process, your team should approach every phone call or email with these 5 aims in mind. This is the focus of your messaging now. Onboarding ends when both the agency and the client have finished making introductions and acquiring all the information they need for a successful engagement. This means all preliminary questions have been answered, goals are agreed upon, and everyone feels confident about moving forward. When onboarding is complete, the actual work related to your SEO project can begin. According to a 2018 study, 43% of agencies say they don't have enough free time for administrative work, and that includes onboarding. If that sounds like a familiar problem, it might be time for your agency to adjust its priorities and make more time for this crucial process. Even if that means taking on fewer clients so that you can devote the amount of time each client deserves to their onboarding phase, you'll see more value come out of those relationships. A properly onboarded client is more likely to be retained, more likely to sign on for repeat business, and more likely to refer other new clients to your agency through word of mouth. You'll reduce churn by spending more time on onboarding, so that even if your client roster is a little shorter, it's filled with higher value relationships. Thanks for watching this lesson. I hope it's provided some background about the importance of client onboarding and how that process fits into your agency's workflow. I'll see you in the next lesson.